We have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order, a world where the rule of law, not the law of the jungle, governs the conduct of nations. When we are successful, and we will be, we have a real chance at this new world order, an order in which a credible United Nations can use its peacekeeping role to fulfill the promise and vision of the UN's founders. And among those maimed and murdered, innocent children.
Disgraced millionaire Jeffrey Epstein has committed suicide in his jail cell. 3 officials familiar with the matter say accused sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein killed himself at Manhattan's Metropolitan Correctional Center. The sources say they found him at 7:30 this morning inside his cell. They say he hanged himself. He had been arrested earlier in July for those sex trafficking charges of several minor girls. We will continue to stay on top of this story. This news just breaking minutes ago. Committed suicide in his jail cell. Committed suicide in his jail cell.
But the law says if you made a mistake, you rescind.
Whose law said that? The law of the United States?
Yeah.
Or who controls the law of the United States?
Legislatures?
Yeah, legislators that have their own agenda. Laws mean nothing. You give me the currency of a country and you can make all the rules in the world. And that's all that matters. Who's in control?
1-800-CALL-FBI.
We build software to fight human trafficking and the sexual exploitation of children.
I was sexually assaulted by a successful Hollywood agent.
And this child was so conditioned by her environment that she thought she was engaging in play.
Dat was het breekpunt.
That was the breaking point.
Kinderen.
Children.
This nation, this idea called America, was and always will be a new world. Our new world.
I've had all the money in the world 3 times. I had to give it back to keep the game going.
What game?
The game. It's a game. Money is a game. It's only real to the people who work for it. The people that don't need to work for money, it's a monopoly game. It's a game of paper.
Democratic system of ours, a system second to none, and make it better. A better America, where there's a job for everyone who wants one. Where women working outside the home can be confident their children are in safe and loving care, and where government works to expand child care alternatives for parents.
I've got a production company, and I've got a recording company, and I've got a mansion in Beverly Hills, and I've got Rolls Royces and Ferraris. I've got everything money can buy, but it's all on paper. Everything's done through the companies and through the tax loopholes, and the people that live on that level, they don't care about the average honest mule that just goes back and forth to work.
Former child star Elijah Wood says Hollywood has a seedy underbelly of child sex abuse and that those responsible are being protected by the entertainment industry elite.
Sheen's statement comes through as representatives to The Hollywood Reporter, and nothing more was said other than he denies the allegations. It's in response to a National Enquirer report claiming Sheen raped Haim while they were working together on the set of Lucas in 1986.
The explosive reaction to that disturbing Michael Jackson documentary, Leaving Neverland. It focuses on 2 men who accused Jackson of abusing them when they were children.
The number one problem in Hollywood was and is and always will be pedophilia. That's the biggest problem for children in this industry.
The casting couch even applies to children.
Oh yeah. Not in the same way. It's all done under the radar.
Nobody talks about pedophilia.
It's the big secret.
Kevin Spacey faces a felony charge of sexually assaulting a teenager in Massachusetts. A district attorney made the announcement today. And soon after, Spacey broke his silence posting a bizarre video to social media. Anna Werner is following this.
I was surrounded by them when I was 14 years old. Surrounded. Literally. Didn't even know it. It wasn't until I was old enough to realize what they were and what they wanted and what they were about and the types of people that were surrounding me till I went, oh my God, they were everywhere like vultures.
We have breaking news tonight. Sources tell CBS News New York City police have brought prosecutors new rape allegations against Hollywood mogul Harvey Weinstein.
San Antonio's Jessica Headley.
And I'm Ryan Wolf.
Our greatest responsibility
is to serve our
Treasure Valley communities,
the El Paso, Las Cruces communities,
Eastern Iowa communities,
Mid-Michigan communities.
We are extremely proud of the quality, balanced journalism that CBS 4 News produces.
But
we are concerned about the trouble and trend of irresponsible, one-sided news stories plaguing our country.
The sharing of biased and false news has become all too common on social media. More alarming, some media outlets publish these same fake stories without checking facts first.
The sharing of biased and
false news has become all too common on social media.
More alarming, some media outlets publish these things aren't true without checking facts first.
Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think. And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
Not sit around one more day and just not say anything. It's Hollywood. It's like the whole thing. Casting directors, they'll convince parents of kids to let them be abused for work and money. And a lot of these parents of showbiz kids have willingly signed off to have their kids abused. It's fucked up. And in that case, a lot of times you don't really even need money to be changed hands. You just need the hey, we'll give you this and that, and it's it's an incestuous system. It's an evil system. Crazy shit on Twitter. That is true. Not something I wanted to say, but I'm fucking tired of people lying. I've watched these people just lie and lie and lie and lie and lie and lie and lie and lie and lie and lie and lie and lie, and they will never fucking tell the truth. So I'm here to tell the truth. Seth Green, sorry my man, fucking so sorry. I never wanted to do this, but you're a pedophile. James Gunn, 10,000 tweets, bro. You fucking kidding me? Like, what part of you thought, like, to not delete? What part of you thought it was like, whatever. Guys, the world is changing. The world is changing. We are entering into a new era for mankind, and it's gonna be hard for people.
I want you to keep in mind that all your social media platforms are controlled by the same people, and the New World Order are controllers, basically. And so anything that's promoted is something you should pay attention to. Is how it's played on all different sides, right? You're going to have the people that are going to come out, parrot the corporate media, and then you're going to get the alternative media coming in saying it's probably the Clintons that did it, and you know, oh, he was really murdered, he didn't commit suicide. How is somebody murdered when they're on suicide watch? Why is anybody paying attention to this? Why does anybody care? Because it's your mind control. because your mind control is basically telling you to invest your energy in this. And this is just a perfect example of how it works. It will never end. You're in a sea of chaos, and the sea of chaos is being stirred, and more shit is being thrown in every day. And every day people go back to this sea of chaos expecting, I don't know what they're expecting, but this is all you're ever going to get. You're going to get your divide and conquer nonstop. You're going to get your left, right. You're going to get your fake alternative media. Whether Epstein is dead, or whether he committed suicide, whether he was murdered, whether he's, still alive on a beach in Tel Aviv or on the dark side of the moon. I'd probably take the latter two if I had to take a guess. Well, maybe not the dark side of the moon, but certainly the beach in Tel Aviv. You're never gonna know. But I guarantee you this psyop will continue to proliferate, and they'll add more, like Jenga, take more blocks and stack them on top, and it'll just get bigger and bigger, and it'll keep going, and they'll tie more people, and more people will Liz Crock in it and say the Clintons are operating child pedo rings, and and this and that, and they're murdering people. It's a Clinton body count, and it just keeps going. So ask yourself this too: why is Twitter having this Clinton body count? Why are they promoting this Clinton body count, right? Aren't they supposed to be cracking down on people putting out fantastical sort of conspiracy theories? Why are they promoting Clinton body count? Because it's part of your programming. That's what it is. It's part of your programming. All the pedogate shills are going to go all over this. It's just going to go everywhere. All your media's controlled. It's all fake. It's all bullshit. And this is just an example how this all functions, and how they are taking you for a ride and sucking your energy and using you to achieve their means. I mean, as long as you are proliferating in these psyops, as long as you are partaking in their rituals and proliferating their rituals, then you're helping the New World Order, essentially, because you're legitimizing the psyop. And this is the case with Epstein. Instead of people just saying, don't pay attention to Epstein, pay attention, look, watch the other hand. This is the sleight of hand of the New World Order. The sleight of hand, it never fails. It happens all the time. It's a sleight of, here's the card that we want you to talk about. And while you're all looking there, our other hand is doing something else. And this is the game that they play. So we're going to have people react every day to the stories they put out and put their sort of spin on it. And you just want to slap these people and say, you're just being played from day one. The fact of the matter that you take these stories and you give them any sort of credibility shows that you are not capable of critical thought, that you don't understand how controlled all your media is. So you actually help. You're enabling the corporate media, you're enabling our controllers to further cement their control over humanity, because you're taking your audience down bullshit alley. And I don't want to call out anybody in particular, but I think you know what I'm saying. When these YouTubers that are supposedly here to try to expose the New World Order are playing the games of the New World Order, whether it's just through ignorance or it's, this will get me more views or whatever, you're playing their game. You are enabling their control because you're letting people buy in. You're giving legitimacy to the stories. Now, the only people with the Epstein story that would have a point of view that I would say that's a smart point of view are the people that would say the beach in Tel Aviv type of thing. Don't pay attention to this story. This story is a distraction. All those people, everyone, and if anybody that I showed before was putting that out, then you deserve some credit because you are at least seeing through the layers of the deception. But everyone else that's going to spin this one way or another way, right, is just contributing to their control system. And as I said before, the Epstein thing will just keep feeding, because what they'll keep doing is they'll keep uncovering more connections to Epstein and Epstein Island, Lolita Express, and the whole thing, and then, well, this person, that person, and then they can trickle it out So the corporate media can, and the fake alternative media can just trickle these stories out, 1 or 2 a week sort of thing, to keep the thing feeding the thing. All of a sudden now, Epstein's death is being linked to the dangers of conspiracy theories and how the conspiracy theorists are relentless. And it's used to divide and conquer, and it will be used for years, if not decades to come. They'll keep regurgitating, mark my words. There's this guy named Isaac Cappy. Do you know about this guy named Isaac Cappy? I mean, I never heard of him from Moses. He had the smallest role in the shittiest movie. It was called Thor. Did you watch it? It was a horrible fucking movie. And he had a role that was like 5 seconds long where he played a pet store clerk. I would say I'm infinitely more famous than that fucking turd. But somehow, he commits suicide, and now there's still people on a daily basis putting up videos saying, Isaac Cappy was murdered. Isaac Cappy was a sack of poo. That's what he was. And I showed this. Before Mr. Cat Tower and their operation promoted this turd, nobody on the planet knew who he was. Nobody. I showed years worth of tweets that he put out going back to 2015 where he couldn't even get a heart on a single tweet if his life depended on him. And this guy was some big-time A-list actor exposing, Pizzagate and the pedo rings and Spielberg and Tom Hanks and all that. No, he was a bullshit artist. But because he had that connection, however minor it was, to Hollywood, people played it to the nth degree. But they create a psyop around this guy, and they use their agents to push it. And then other people can jump on it and get it for views and put out umpteen different videos, and it just feeds into the whole thing. It just keeps going, and then this comes out of it, and Isaac Cappy was a hero, and Isaac Cappy was a fraud, and Isaac Cappy was this, and Isaac Cappy was that. Isaac Cappy and the key things he exposed: nothing. Zilch. What, you think saying pedo about a bunch of frickin' Hollywood A-listers that he probably never even became remotely close to is exposing shit? Look at all the effort and diversion that has happened with this fucking total inconsequential character, this shit stain, right? This Isaac Cappy, who was a narcissist and a sociopath and a fucking rotten human being, in his own words. Now, whether he's dead or on a beach in Tel Aviv, or on the dark side of the moon, you should give 0 fucks. You should waste not 1 second of your life even thinking about that turd, or the people that cover that turd. But this is how they do it. And they can endlessly bring in these characters, these actors, to play these roles, and then they can have the people that expose them, because they often do that. They'll control the shills, and then they'll control the shills who expose the shills, and then they play off against each other. It's an endless sort of thing. You have that choice, and that should be your thing, and that's why I have the choice, and I come and I say this, because I want to say to all the good people that listen to me, that with my experience, my many years now, 7.5 years of experience doing this, you're being played. 100%. You're being played. And yeah, they're normalizing the pedophilia at the same time as making pedo stories in the news every day. And yeah, they're doing all this shit to the kids. It's awful. But yes, we should be directly concerned with our own kids, right? And we should be directly concerned with how these psyops are going to be used in order to infringe upon our own rights.
What is at stake is more than one small country. It is a big idea, a new world order, where diverse nations are drawn together in common cause to achieve the universal aspirations of mankind.
Create a new world order, because the global order is changing again. And the institutions and the rules that worked so well in the post-World War II era for decades, they need to be strengthened, and some have to be changed.
You see, my dear girl, I joined the Freemasons before it was trendy. That's my eyeball on the dollar bill. That's also my pyramid.
Oh, I'd love to see New York
We could all go with the bus company's special super sitter fare. $9? This one's on me.
Because these guys own our government. They print our money, and they own not only the government, but they own you. You are their property. So, in other words, these guys print the money, they run the country, and they own you, and they own everything around it. And so they make the laws, and that's why they can decide who can kill who, and who can get away with who, and who can get away with whatever, because they make the laws and they decide.
And do you think that the country will see the United States will see the first gay president or the first woman president?
We already have it with Obama, so let's just calm down.
Got it.
No, Michelle is a
I'm sorry, she's a what?
A transgender. We all know.
Oh my gosh.
A transgender. We all know.
Oh my gosh.
Joan Rivers, one of the giants of American comedy, has died in New York. She'd been on life support since late last week when she reportedly stopped breathing while undergoing a procedure on her throat at a clinic here in Manhattan.
You were both in Skull and Bones, the secret society.
It's so secret we can't talk about it.
What does that mean for America? The conspiracy theorists are going to go
I'm
wild.
sure they are. I don't know. I haven't seen the web.
Number 322?
First of all, he's not the nominee. And, look, I look forward...
Are you prepared to lose?
No, I'm not going to lose.
You both were members of Skull and Bones, a secret society at Yale. What does that tell us?
Not much, because it's a secret.
Is there a secret handshake? Is there a secret code?
I wish there were something secret I could manifest.
322, a secret number?
There are all kinds of secrets.
They're faced with a very real prospect of Donald Trump becoming the leader of the party, and it absolutely drives them crazy. They just cannot imagine sharing. Well, because he's an outsider. He's not them. He's not part of the club. He's uncontrollable. He hasn't been through the initiation rites. He didn't belong to the secret society.
But this is the universal sign right here. And every time a Mason shakes a hand, he will go in that way, no matter who, because he wants to know who's a brother and who isn't. Sure. Again, it's innocuous enough to say, what are you doing? But still, it immediately, when I was in, I understood immediately. In fact, I was doing business in another state, and I thanked my cab driver with that handshake. And he lit up, and he said, hey, brother, the lodge is down the street. Whatever you need, we have a meeting next week. You're more than welcome. Just with the handshake.
Politique, restons droit, parce que si jamais un monsieur ne va pas gagner, il y a quand même les Rockefeller, les gens comme les Rothschild, les grosses familles qui dominent quand même les continents. Donc c'est même pas la France, on parle des continents. C'est des familles qui ont grandi en 1827 avec des familles à 5 garçons où ils s'expandent.
Vous parlez
Je dis c'est au-dessus de tout ce qu'on parle.
Oui.
Ok. Donc, comme il dit, il y a les lobbyistes, il y a les gens qui se présentent aux élections.
Oui.
Et il y a des gars comme Donald Trump qui ont, 10 billions d'euros.
C'est pas lui qui dépense le plus, hein.
Enfin, il doit déclarer en Amérique, il faut qu'il montre les papiers.
En tout cas, il dépense son propre argent.
Il a peut-être plus. Mais enfin, un garçon comme ça, si moi j'ai des biens, et j'ai travaillé toute ma vie pour ma famille, pour mes amis, pour un pays où je paye mes taxes, tout ce qu'il veut, je crois d'abord, c'est protéger ses intérêts. Donc, quelqu'un qui travaille gratuit, c'est quelqu'un de dangereux. Ça veut dire qu'il protège les intérêts de son pays. Bon, c'est vrai qu'on a des problèmes avec le Middle East, mais ce qui dit dans un sens, se retirer du Middle East, c'est... Attendez, c'est leur foutre la paix.
Bien sûr.
Chacun a une philosophie. Attendez, parce qu'on m'a demandé, Monsieur Governam, vous connaissez la politique?
Bien sûr, bien sûr.
So I'm aware about that.
Merci Jean-Claude.
1997 yılı Türkiye Masonları açısından çok önemli bir yıl olmuştu. İlk defa Mason mabetlerinde gizli çekimler gerçekleştirilmiş ve bu görüntüler Kanal 7 televizyonunda günlerce yayınlanmıştı. İki ayrı locada çekilmiş olan gizli kamera görüntüleri hem Türk halkını hem de yüksek derecelere ulaşmamış Masonları şoke etti. 1738 yılında İstanbul'da kurulan ilk locadan bu yana gizliliğini koruyarak gelen Masonların görüntülerinin deşifre edilmesi ve Masonluğun gerçek yüzünün gözler önüne serilmesi günlerce konuşuldu. Adayları tanıdınız.
Serdar Büyüküstün, mesleği elektrik mühendisi. Aykut Erensoy, mesleği elektrik mühendisi. Kenan Ali Akman, mesleği serbest ticaret.
Adayların kimlikleri anlaşıldı. Onları içeri aldınız. Sayın baylar, her şeyden önce bize söz vermenizi istiyoruz. Aramıza alınmanız kabul edilse de edilmese de, bizim düşünce odası dediğimiz o karanlık bölgeye girdiğiniz andan başlayarak, şu ana kadar görüp işittiklerinizi ve bundan böyle burada işiteceklerinizi, gözleriniz açıldıktan sonra da göreceklerinizi hiç kimseye söylemeyeceğinize namusunuz ve onurunuz üzerine söz verir misiniz? Sayın Aykut Erensoy?
Evet, söz veririm.
Sayın Serdar Büyüküstün?
Söz veririm.
Sayın Kenan Ali Akman?
Evet, söz veririm.
Soruşturucu kardeşim, adayları oturtunuz. Sayın Serdar Büyüküstün, göğsünüze dayanan ve bir elinizle size yoklatılan şeyin ne olduğunu söyler misiniz?
Metal bir parça. Kılıç.
Sayın Aykut Erensoy, göğsünüze dayanan ve bir elinizle size yoklatılan şeyin ne olduğunu söyler misiniz?
Kılıca benziyor.
Kılıcın göğüslerinize dayandırılması, verdiğiniz sözde durmazsanız, yaşamınız boyunca pişmanlık duyacağınızı ve acı çekeceğinizi bildirir. Herhangi bir yanlış anlamaya yer kalmaması için şunu da öğrenmek isteriz. Aramıza girmek isteyen kişi gerçekten siz misiniz? Sayın Aykut Erensoy, Mason olabilmek için size verilen başvuru formunu hiçbir etki, baskı altında olmaksızın salt kendi istem ve buyurultunuzla siz mi doldurup imzaladınız?
Evet.
Adayların birinci yolculuğu yapmalarını sağlayınız. Gerçek ışığı arayan adam. Az önce okunan anda şimdi benimle birlikte tekrar ediniz. Evrenin ulu mimarı simgesiyle burada bulunan Mason topluluğu önünde kendi istek ve buyrultuğumla içtenlikle dolu olarak söz veriyorum.
Evrenin ulu mimarı simgesiyle burada bulunan Mason topluluğu önünde kendi istek ve buyrultuğumla içtenlikle dolu olarak söz veriyorum.
Bana söylenilecek ve gösterilecek Mason gizemlerini bir Mason'dan başkasına ve Mason hocasından başka bir yerde açıklamayacağım.
Bana söylenilecek ve gösterilecek Mason gizemlerini bir Mason'dan başkasına ve Mason hocasından başka bir yerde açıklamayacağım.
Masonların amaçları doğrultusunda çalışacağım.
Masonların amaçları doğrultusunda çalışacağım.
Özgür Masonlar Büyük Hocası'nın ilkelerine bağlı kalacağım.
Özgür Masonlar Büyük Hocası'nın ilkelerine bağlı kalacağım.
Üyesi olacağım hocanın toplantılarına düzenli olarak katılacağım.
Üyesi olacağım hocanın toplantılarına düzenli olarak katılacağım.
Birinci Nazır kardeşim, adaylar için ne istiyorsun?
Bilimsel gerçeğin ışığını saygıdeğer üstadım.
Doğruyu ve bütün sütunları süsleyen kardeşlerim, adaylar için ne istiyorsun?
Bilimsel gerçeğin ışığını saygıdeğer üstadım.
Çekicinin üçüncü vuruşunda bilimsel gerçeğin ışığı verirsin. Uçları size çevrilmiş bulunan kılıçlar Ruslar bundan sonra yaşamını saldırıya uğrarsa Masonların sizi savunacaklarını simgelemektedir. Bu şok görüntülerin hemen ardından yayınlanan diğer çekimlerde ise Türkiye Masonluğu tamamen deşifre oldu. Bu görüntülerde yalnızca 33. dereceden Masonların katılabildiği şeytana tapma ayini icra edilmekteydi. Ayini yöneten büyük üstad, locanın ortasında kesilen bir keçinin kanını içiyor ve İbranice bazı dualar okuyarak şeytana tapma ayinini sonuçlandırıyor.
That was University of Wisconsin professor Kevin Barrett, who has recently drawn criticism for plans to teach an Islamic studies course next fall that will incorporate conspiracy theories that the U.S. government was involved in the events of September 11th. Professor Barrett joins us now. Professor, can you give us the context within which you teach this?
Okay, what you've just seen here is he used a nonverbal gesture with his hands and an outward motion to kind of scatter his thinking, and then swayed both of his hands over to his left shoulder, which would give the subconscious impression of being far to the left, and also kind of distracts his thinking a little bit. So that's what he's doing. That's why his hands are all over the place, and then they swing over to his left shoulder to send the subconscious message that he is an extremist, a left-winger. Okay?
Can you give us the context within which you teach this?
Well, yeah, sure. I'm teaching an introductory course on Islam, and I think it's really important to cover these contemporary political issues, and one of them is, of course, the so-called war on terror. Now, the fact is that the great majority of the world's Muslims believe that 9/11 was an inside job.
But that's your opinion, right?
Again, manipulation is all about timing and redirecting and trying to take control of somebody when they're speaking. Here, you see a great example of that by saying that's your opinion, even though he just stated there's a vast number of people that are waking up, even though he specifies the Muslim community. That's not true. It's all over the world. So the journalist's responsibility to misdirect his thinking and to mislead you is to follow up and say, but that's your opinion, even though he stated that it wasn't just his opinion. But it doesn't matter, because people believe what they hear from newscasters. They take in the barrage of words, and the newscaster here understands that. So if he says that, he plants that seed.
Now, the fact is that the great majority of the world's Muslims believe that 9/11 was an inside job.
But that's your opinion, right? That's your opinion that there was an inside job.
Well, after studying the evidence pretty intensively for 2.5 years, I am convinced that 9/11 was, in fact, an inside job.
And are students required to regurgitate that in some way in order to do well in your class?
Again, more manipulation. I'm sure you caught that. Even though this very system of the world creates people to regurgitate, they will often accuse people of doing the things that they do. It's just part of it, okay? So by saying our students required to regurgitate that gives the subconscious impression that he is controlling their minds and not teaching them to think, when in actuality, to be able to see through the media, to be able to see what is going on, is not regurgitation. Any person that does regurgitate and only memorize and not think would not be able to see through it anyway. It doesn't matter. This is reverse psychology. This is just not even that. It's just manipulation. It's just name calling. It's I'm rubber, you're glue. Again, this is a way that he disrupts the guy's thinking with petty comments like that. He knows that this type of person would never want anybody to regurgitate anything because that doesn't allow them to learn to think. Doesn't matter. If there's an audience to this, he plants that seed again.
Well, after studying the evidence pretty intensively for 2.5 years, I am convinced that 9/11 was in fact an inside job.
And are students required to regurgitate that in some way in order to do well in your class?
That's ridiculous. No, I'm not interested in making students regurgitate anything.
All right, Mr. Barrett, Sean Hannity here. Do you really believe that 9/11 was an inside job?
Okay, Sean Hannity. I never watched Fox News before, but within seconds of seeing this guy, you can just see that he is a snake. At least he is currently conducting himself as such. Now, this is pretty basic what he's doing. He's not giving eye contact. He's pretending to be bored with the guy's very presence. And this is a way to discredit him that way, as if he's just some sort of gnat and not even worth considering, and that's why he's purposely looking down and acting bored when he talks to him. Secondly, he uses the word believe. Do you really believe? To believe is not to know, and that's why he's stressing that. And again, you're going to start to see extreme manipulation from this Mr. Hannity.
All right, Mr. Barrett, Sean Hannity here. Do you really believe that 9/11 was an inside job, not just 9/11, but Madrid and Bali and the Zakawi operation?
Well, you know, actually...
hang on a second.
Yeah, okay.
All right, so what he does is he tries to take control of this conversation right away. He insinuates something, and the professor was smart enough to catch what he was saying, and then when he tried to respond to that, he interrupts him to take control. Now, notice, and I'll point this out in a little bit, when he puts his hand up in the OK sign, you're about to learn what that really means and what they use it for. But for now, just understand that that's how they'll do it. They'll insult you while they speak and try to continue speaking before you can actually reply to it. And therefore it makes the professor look nuts. You know what I mean? Because if people don't catch this neuro-linguistic programming, if they don't catch the manipulation, you know, which is comprises the majority of the audience anyway, nevertheless, if they don't catch it, then he can do that. He can take those cheap shots, and when the professor tries to correct those, then he interrupts him, says, hey, hold on, you know, and then tries to make him look rude for interrupting and take control over him and disrupt his thinking at the same time.
Well, you know, actually... hang on a second. Do you believe personally that these are inside jobs, yes or no?
It's not quite that simple.
Okay, believe personally, that's another way to plant that into your psyche, that it is just he that believes this, and then he uses the yes or no trap, because that is again misleading if you can't see that. The way he twisted around that question would not allow the professor to be able to give a yes or no answer, because he injected manipulation into the question itself. So when the professor tries to say that, of course, then it puts him under pressure. The professor is smart enough to catch that, and it isn't that simple, and he understands. The professor knew, of course, what I'm telling you right now. However, time is ticking. He only has so much time on the air, and their job is to disrupt his thinking as much as possible and make as many hidden accusations as they can and as many subconscious embeds into how to perceive the professor as they can in the short amount of time that he's on the air, and that's their only job, is to discredit and disrupt. Okay, but he did catch it. Now he has to respond to that rather than being able to say anything that matters. And that's what they do. Another good person at this is Stephen Colbert. If you watch Stephen Colbert with any of his interviews, his whole job is to discredit and disrupt. That's what he does, and you keep it moving. It's very, very petty, but these are the people that you allow to run you, okay? So know that, and that's what's going on right here.
Yes or no?
It's not quite that simple. I do know, I don't believe, I know that 9/11 was an inside job. Professor Stephen Jones has found residue of thermate on the steel samples from the World Trade Center. We now know that it was taken down in a controlled demolition.
All right, so you believe that the buildings came down in a controlled demolition?
Okay, so the professor did a really good job of identifying his manipulation by saying, I don't believe, I know. And because he was starting to get through that, Hannity interrupts him and says, I don't have a lot of time. Well, wait a minute, you just asked him a question, and now he's able to break through your manipulation, and suddenly you don't have a lot of time for the very answer to the question that you just asked. The next thing you see, he asked him, what evidence does he have? And he interrupted him giving the evidence to ask him what evidence he has. Why? Of course, he's not interested in hearing the evidence or anybody else hearing it. He's interested in interrupting him and planting another embed into the psyche that what he happens to be saying right now is somehow not evidence. It's all misdirection of focus, redirection of focus, disrupting, interrupting, gaining control. And, you know, it's this very petty, they rely on these petty techniques. Now, at the end of this, he does something that a lot of you probably aren't aware of. He does a hand gesture. He takes both of his hands and he puts them up in front of his head and then pulls them down. And he pretends he's talking about the buildings falling down. What that is I don't know what they would term it. I'm just intuitive. I'm perceptive. I can see what they're doing. That's sorcery. Sorcery is just anything that is used to circumvent the conscious mind, to control the mind. That gesture is designed to take away his zest, his focus, his power. By bringing his hands down like that, he's trying to subconsciously take away the focus of the professor, take away his power. And that's exactly what he's doing, and that's what you're seeing, and I'll play that again for you.
Job. Professor Stephen Jones has found residue of fermate on the steel samples from the World Trade Center. We now know that it was taken down in a controlled demolition.
Right, so you believe that the buildings came down in a controlled demolition, right?
Well, I don't believe it. I've looked at the evidence,
you're right,
the evidence is overwhelming.
All right, the evidence is overwhelming to you because you're a conspiracy nut, but
no,
you know,
actually, all of you, I ask your viewers to take...
Okay. Now, in this one, I'm sure you caught the obvious part, but you probably did not catch the neuro-linguistic programming. What exactly is neuro-linguistic programming? Simply put, it's dual meaning that is speaking to the subconscious. Now, of course, he's shaping public opinion by saying, it's obvious to you because you are a conspiracy nut. Well, remember now, people are very phobic of being called anything that goes against the norm. So if you agree with him, oh, then you're a nut, and people, you know, they can't escape their own ego. So that's used to shape him. What you probably didn't catch is him saying, but you know, putting that all aside, this is neuro-linguistic programming. Now, pay attention here. You're a conspiracy nut, but putting that all aside, what that is doing is he's directing your subconscious mind and your conscious mind to store that label, that impression of him. Put it aside. Keep that. It's called anchoring. In neuro-linguistic programming, because I've watched a little bit of it, I didn't need to watch it to pick up on how they do this, but it allows you to get some of their terminology down. They call this anchoring. Anchoring a thought, anchoring a concept, anchoring a feeling. Putting all of that aside means put that aside in your mind. He's a conspiracy nut. Do you see how they manipulate you? That's a very good lesson right there in neuro-linguistic programming.
All right, the evidence is overwhelming to you because you're a conspiracy nut, but
no,
you know,
actually, all of you, I ask your viewers to take a look at this evidence for themselves. They can go to st911.org. That's Scholars for 9/11 Truth. Take a look. Take a look at the demolitions.
I know you
Morgan Reynolds, a former Bush administration official.
Okay, that's pretty obvious. You see how he's treating him. Very nonchalant, irritated, bored. And I know you think you're the smartest guy in the world. This is, you know, the typical you're a know-it-all type of comment. If you watch that David Icke video where he goes back on Wogan, he draws attention to the same thing where he said, whoa, that's a cheap shot when he said, you know it all. And the response was accurate. I'm not saying I know it all. But people are trained to hate people who, quote, know it all. Why? Because they want you to be dumb. That's why in society you have catchphrases that go around that people use, like, you think too much, you're too deep, you know it all. These have all become derogatory terms in this new Orwellian society. Haven't you noticed that? His response is petty and childish, but he means to be this way. It does nothing, it addresses nothing. He can't think of anything to say in response to the professor, so he has to take a cheap shot like this. I know you think you're the smartest guy in the world. That should be obvious to you, that is just overdoing it, creating, manifesting an insult, just again for one reason, and one reason only: to disrupt his thinking and to program your mind on how to view him.
Take a look at the demolitions. I know you Morgan Reynolds, a former Bush administration official, says that the Bush administration blew the World Trade Center to kingdom come. That's a direct quote from a member of the Bush administration itself.
I know.
Blew
and there
the
were
World
people
Trade
that
Center
said
to
that the
kingdom
Jews
come.
were told to leave. Well, we've heard a lot of these sick, bizarre theories.
Okay, so suddenly he's an anti-Semite? When did that come about? I didn't hear him say anything about the Jews. What he's doing here is he's trying to link him to anti-Semitism. That's what they want to do. Now, anybody that's really trying to speak the truth in this world has no interest in focusing on a group or even an individual. What they try to focus on is the problem in general, outside of any group or individual that may be manifesting the symptoms of the problem. But again, what he's trying to do here is, in your mind, link the professor to being part of a hate group, someone that's going to target a group or an individual, and make you link the terms sick and bizarre to the professor. He didn't say anything about the Jewish community. Nothing. So catch that. See how he's trying to link the professor to it.
The World Trade Center to kingdom come. That's a direct quote from a member of the Bush administration itself.
I know.
Blew
and there
the
were
World
people
Trade
that
Center
said
to
that the
kingdom
Jews
come.
were told to leave. Well, we've heard a lot of these sick, bizarre theories.
That's
and I
not
don't
the
believe
same
any
thing.
of them, but you're allowed to believe what you want, but that's not what's at hand here.
Okay, now another thing, just to make you aware, again, of just how much they're programming your mind. To you, it looks like a man that said that's not the issue at hand here. You need to start learning their language. Their language is dual meaning, which goes hand in hand with neuro-linguistic programming. The issue at hand here, what he's doing is directing the professor to look at his hand. Now, why would he have the professor look at his hand? Well, if you look at his hand right now, you see it as what you've been told is the OK sign, right? Well, let's show you what it really means. The OK symbol, as you see right here, means 666. For some reason, 666 has some sort of control over the mind. Now, it could have something to do with the beast computers many of you have read about. It's sorcery. It is putting a hex on somebody. It is subconscious symbolism that somehow affects some people. It doesn't affect everybody. But he's using that, and he was directing the professor to look at his hand to use sorcery on him. It's not that one thing will work. They try to use as many combinations of things as they can, but that is a symbol, and it means 666, and that is why he told him to look at his hand, or the issue at hand here told his mind subconsciously to look at his hand. Do you see? And that is what just occurred there. That's not what's at hand here, meaning you are not allowed to believe what you want. And that also tells the population looking at him, because remember, he is also talking to people that are watching television. And so they are also instructed to look at his hand subconsciously or take notice of it subconsciously. And when he says you're allowed to believe what you want, but that's not what's at hand here, he's saying with the 666 rule over your mind, you are not allowed to believe what you want, and that speaks to your subconscious mind and programs people to not think. And that's what it means all around and all together. That's what just happened.
But you're allowed to believe what you want, but that's not what's at hand here. The issue is whether or not you, with your bizarre theories, are the best.
I think you have the bizarre theory. You think it was 19
Hang on a second.
Okay, again saying his issues, his views are bizarre, right? But the reason he puts up his pinky there is because that is the weakest finger, that it would imply a small penis, not a potent man, using that in reference to him, saying that he is impotent, that he is bizarre, that he is weak, and that he is of the pinky. And that's why he chooses, of all fingers and all gestures, to speak about his theories, he puts his pinky up. And these are all subconscious sorcery methods. Again, sorcery is not some guy wearing a magician's hat. part of sorcery is speaking to and manipulating the conscious mind from the subconscious.
Whether or not you, with your bizarre theories, are the best.
I think you have the bizarre theory. You think it was 19 guys with box cutters led by a guy on dialysis in a cave in Afghanistan? That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the craziest conspiracy theory of all of them.
Okay, I wish I had the Twilight Zone music. Now, here's my next...
See, all he can say is something to discredit him. I wish I had the Twilight Zone music. And then the people watching the televisions that say, yes, that must be weird. Twilight Zone music is weird. And the honest and credible news reporter is saying that about him. Okay? Now you see that all the neuro-linguistic programming is starting to get to the professor. He's starting to screw up his words. He's starting to screw up his concentration. He's mispronouncing. That's because there's a lot of negative energy being focused on him, interrupting his thought process. So you can see how he's starting to screw up his words, but he's still holding, with all of that working against him and being unaware of those techniques, he still holds his own, but you start to see it get to him a little bit.
I mean, that's the craziest conspiracy theory of all of them.
Okay, I wish I had the Twilight Zone music. Now, here's my next question. The issue that is at hand here, you're entitled to have your opinion. I don't really care what you believe. But if we're talking about a captive group of students in a class...
Again, making a bored face as if he's nothing. He's the pinky. He's lower than low. I really don't care what you believe. But if we're talking about a captive group of students... Okay, first he said that they implied that he wants his students to regurgitate. Now he's holding them captive, which goes hand in hand with what? Terrorism, hostages... He's subconsciously painting this professor to be what? A terrorist. So not only have they discredited him, but people are already getting in their minds that with this neuro-linguistic programming, now you understand what neuro-linguistic programming is. Neural, brain, linguistic, speech, programming the brain with speech via the subconscious. Dual meaning.
I don't really care what you believe. But if we're talking about a captive group of students in a classroom, the question we've got to ask... Hang on a second. Well, they're sitting in your classroom, and you have a position of authority. I'm wondering, the question is whether or not you're the most competent to teach them. And most people think you're a nut.
Now, this one should be obvious. Isn't he a person that's in a position of authority? And isn't he about as incompetent as you can get as far as love and honesty and caring about other life forms? Yet he turns it around because people believe what they hear and what they read. So if he says it first, and that's a big part of this, is trying to say things first before somebody else can say something, then it seems like they will always be on the defensive. And that's the whole point, is to keep the professor on the defensive. All right? And saying that he is detrimental to his students, when the truth is Fox News is incredibly detrimental to you, just in this short clip I'm showing you here, and people are watching this all day long.
And most people think you're a nut. Most people think your views are not even worth listening to.
We just had a poll here in Madison, and we found that 90% of the respondents at Channel 3000 poll said that I should be allowed to teach. Only 10% said I shouldn't.
That's the question.
And 60%,
I don't think what your views are...
agreed with me about the questions I'm raising about 9/11. 60% of the respondents.
I think
you're in the minority.
Right to speak. I don't think this is the proper forum, though, for people that hold extremist views like yourself.
Okay, first of all, when he says no, like that, what he's doing is he's programming the television viewers' collective consciousness to disregard the results of that poll. He says no, and then your mind says no to the information he just gave. These are just little tricks he slips in there. And most people think he's a nut? What? But see, people watch that, of course, and they store that in their mind as fact. Of course, most people do not think he is a nut. But if he says that, he programs anybody watching this television program, hint, hint, that everybody thinks he's a nut. So I will too, to fit in. Where did he get that number? How does he know most people think that he's a nut? Think about it. They don't. He just says it, and then the professor has to respond to that. He's totally disrupting the whole interview. So it appears to people, because time is moving by, that there's actually an interview going on here, but it's not. It's only about disrupting and discrediting and programming your opinion. Okay, first of all, I used to live in Madison, Wisconsin, and I can tell you that people did not think that he was crazy. It was the television that began to program people to think that he was crazy. Again, now, extremist views like yourself. Now, they already set the stage in your mind, or the viewer's mind, before he brought that up in the beginning, when that first reporter took his hands and whipped him over to the left side of his shoulder to subconsciously say that he's an extreme leftist. He's on the extreme left. So now they're reinforcing that, telling you to believe that he is extremist, that these are extreme things. Well, Fox is 666. Look, I mean, just look what they're doing. Look what I'm pointing out to you. Once you start to understand the dual meaning of neuro-linguistic programming, things become crystal clear to you.
About the questions I'm raising about 9/11, 60% of the respondents.
I think
you're in the minority.
Right to speak. I don't think this is the proper forum, though, for people that hold extremist views like yourself. Reasonable.
No, you guys are extremists.
Reasonable people. Now, notice what he did there. He took his hands and he gestured them towards himself and said reasonable people while pointing to himself. Therefore, your subconscious and your conscious mind is shaped to see Sean Hannity as the reasonable person. They're always using gestures against you in coordination with dual meaning in things they say and direct meaning. So again, reasonable people, all he has to do is point to himself, and that's a subtle, nonverbal gesture to make you associate being reasonable with Sean Hannity's point of view. He's programming your mind. So now after you have associated being reasonable with Sean Hannity, and when he says people think, he points out or opens his hand, so you are to think. See, reasonable people, he points to himself and then opens it up to you, think. You shouldn't be allowed to teach this class. We can do a better job. People will be programmed by that.
Reasonable
no, you guys are extremists. Fox News is the biggest bunch of extremists on the planet.
But reasonable people see you as an extremist, and I don't think you're the most appropriate guy to teach that class. My guess
I don't
is
think you're the most appropriate guy to be on the airwaves spewing your venom.
And the professor got it right. You can see the look on his face. He says, spewing your venom. That's exactly what he's doing. The problem is that you can't get all of this out in an interview. For example, say I was on an interview like this. They would be doing all the same things to me. All I would be doing is calling attention to everything he's doing, and then he would sit there and argue with me. Nothing would ever get discussed. This is how they take advantage of people. Look how long it's taken me. Do you know this clip is only like 2 minutes long, normally? But just to describe 2 very short minutes of media to you, look how long this is taking. That's the problem. That's why I haven't done it before, because I can sit here and explain it to you, but you need to open up your eyes so you can see it for yourself, because it all happens way too quickly. If you try to explain something that happens in a 3-second period, if you're not educated on that, if you're not aware of it, it will go by way too fast before you can bring somebody up to speed to understand what's going on. This is why I had to break it down for you, but I still can't do this with everything I see, because this is everywhere. This is common. This is always going on. And it just, you need to educate yourself, but you need to become aware. Again, dual meaning, neuro-linguistic programming, gesturing, association of concepts and beliefs to link them, anchor them in your mind, to misdirect your perception, your beliefs, and your ability to perceive reality in general.
Class, my guess
I don't think you're the most appropriate guy to be on the airwaves spewing your venom throughout this country. I think you guys should be taken off the airwaves because you are the guys who are...
We don't want to silence anybody. You teach, we'll do Hannity and Combs. Thank you, Professor. Coming up, we'll have a...
We don't want to silence anybody. That's exactly what they have just done. Though you heard a lot of speaking going on, nothing was able to get out into the open. They completely took control of this poor man. And he's brave, okay, to get out there, lose his job, and to speak the truth. And they hound him like bees. They're using techniques that are hidden, that are sorcery, they're of sorcery in their nature. They're hypnotic, they're using negative energy, manipulative techniques, childish argument techniques, and so you've seen a lot of talking, but nothing got out into the open. And you see how nervous they made him. Why? Because he had to keep dealing with their techniques and he couldn't express the truth. And this is how anybody who tries to get on the media to speak the truth is manipulated, and that's why most don't even bother. They don't bother because they would just get into an argument. I mean, what's the point? The expert that I've seen at this is Stephen Colbert. He was one of the biggest disinformation agents out there. He'll get somebody in for an interview and just completely distract, disrupt, discredit, and there is no interview. That's what I call Stephen Colbert's interviews. They're not interviews. They're Stephen Colbert using techniques to distract and discombobulate, basically. So this is why you don't get the truth in the media. Even if people do get a chance at airtime, they will be interrupted, misdirected, hypnotic suggestions to the audience that are watching it. You just can't, people that know the truth won't even try. They won't even try to go on the mainstream media, and people that do, it ends up like this. So until that is addressed, then nothing will ever be told on mainstream media. But what you can learn from this, don't watch TV, okay?